Tonight, we discuss Churchtown still reigning at the top. We look at who could yet finish in the top six and drop out, and look ahead to some big fixtures this week in the Super League. We hope the technical problems are over. It's time. So join us as we look back and look forward to the Super League action. Yes, good evening, Super League fans worldwide. The weather outside might be frightful, but the Super League, for most of us, is delightful. And I'm joined by the man who's fast becoming my partner in crime, the deck to my aunt. It's Scott. Good evening, pal. How are you?
Evening, Fife. You all right, pal?
Yeah, very good, very good. Listen, before we get going, away from the Super League, all the fixtures and stuff being announced since we last properly spoke, you must be buzzing to be starting with Liverpool. It's just a shame that there'll be no Leeds fans there to see it.
Yeah, what a great game to start the season. To go to Liverpool, they've been on such a good run last couple of years. Don't think they've lost at home in nearly 60 games. So yeah, it's really exciting times. We're on the verge of signing a couple of really good players as well. So really exciting times. Just a real shame that the fans can't be there. We've not been able to celebrate properly, and we're not going to get to the games as they start coming thick and fast in the next few weeks. But it is what it is, isn't it? I guess
it's on its way, though, mate. I know for me personally, my local non-league team is doing a trial game so that the assessors will allow sort of 300 people in to their games sort of moving forward. And I think Chelsea and Brighton are having a friendly tomorrow to start allowing sort of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people into more elite venues. So we're getting there slowly.
Yeah, there's lots going on. There's lots of trials and stuff like that. I've seen something today that says Premier League grounds are going to be limited to 25% capacity. It's yet to be confirmed, but that's what they're talking about. And that, especially at Leeds, I'm not sure about all clubs, but Leeds are going to do sort of a ballot system, and season ticket holders are going to be allowed to 1 in 4 games, which is a bit shit, really, when you pay hundreds of pounds and you're not going to get to pick and choose when you want to go and that sort of stuff. But we'll have to just wait and see how it pans out.
No, absolutely, mate, absolutely. But listen, the people watching this don't care about our thoughts on what's going on in the real world. They're only interested in the ultimate game of fantasy football. So let's dive straight in. And Churchtown continued to lead the way. Last week, they beat Ardsley in what was a big fixture for the top 6 sides. They won 2-1 at home. We spoke a bit last week and in previous weeks about Churchtown having that sort of, or if they have that sort of Valen of last season about them, where they're just like a juggernaut that's going to keep going. Results like this against Ardsley, is that only going to build on that sort of mystique about them, do you think?
Yeah, they're in imperious form at the minute. They're playing really well. The brushing sides aside, but I think actually Ardsley played really well. I think they were leading at half-time, and Churchtown just had a sort of 15-20 minute spell in the second half where they just dominated the game, created chance after chance after chance, and Ardsley just couldn't hold them out. And when we sort of reviewed the game last week, I sort of said, I think that would be Ardsley's downfall, because they've been struggling to score more than 1 goal in the last few weeks. So, if they'd have capitalised in the first half and maybe took another chance or two, the second half might have been a little bit different. But as it is, when you go in at half-time and you're only 1 goal behind, you're always in the game, especially when you're in the form and you've got the attacking ability that Churchtown have got. So, but it was a really good game. Good game. Churchtown probably deserved the win. But, Hodgie will be a little bit disappointed that he didn't get that second goal in the first half, and that he's conceded 2 goals so quickly.
And if I may sort of loosely associate a chant you'll be familiar with, what's your thoughts on Ardsley's falling apart again?
I think that's a bit harsh, really. Yeah, they've not been. Look, they won 8 or 9 games in a row, was it? So, you know, they've got the ability to win games. They've not been in the best form last sort of 4 or 5. To say that someone's fallen apart after you've lost at Churchtown is a bit harsh. But I think they had enough points on the board at the halfway stage to almost certainly guarantee the playoff spot. I think in probably another 2 wins, maybe 3 wins in the last, we got 8 games left, 7, 8 games. So, you know, Hodgie will be confident that he can still make the playoffs. And if you can put a run together towards the end of the season and take that form into the playoffs, you know, we've seen that they've got the ability to win games back to back to back, if you like. So, you know, don't write Ardsley off just yet.
No, I completely agree. And they're a team that I've said that if they do get going, you should watch them. And next or Sunday, they've got Hoddesdon at home. That is a great chance, I feel, for them to start turning it around.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ardsley in the position that they're in and how well they've played this year will feel that that's a game they should be winning. Craig's been depleted with injuries. They've not been playing great. They've been struggling to score goals, but they have been hard to beat. You know, they've not been hammered very often this season. They've been hard to beat. Only, you know, they've been involved in 2 or 3 0-0 draws and goals by the odd game here or there. So, you know, it's not an easy game, but it's a game that Hodgie will think he should be winning.
Churchtown, by comparison, travelled to BTEC, who, sadly for Ian, who we're all massive fans of and have a lot of respect for, that they looked like they were building a bit of momentum, and it's come crashing down the last couple of weeks. So are you looking at that thinking Churchtown win?
Yeah, I mean, look, every time you look at BTEC, you think, you look at the fixture that they're in, you think, do you know what, they should be in this game, they should have a chance. Talked at length about the squad. I'm not going to keep going on about that. Ian will be disappointed after his sort of mini revival, and he sort of thought he found a bit of a formula, and he was going to. I guess he was probably quietly confident that he was going to start stringing some results together, and it made the guys tick. And he'd have been looking at, you know, really building some momentum this second half of the season. In the last couple of weeks, you know, they've just sort of slipped back. I think he experimented a little bit with his system last week against Bolton, and I don't think we'll see that again. Probably, you know, that didn't work. But yeah, you know, it's hard to say that you can expect BTEC to take anything from Churchtown if you look at this both sides' form and that sort of thing. But when you've got a team with that quality in, you know, you can never say that you can write them off. But I would expect Churchtown to win. I think I've seen on Twitter that Kieran's mentioned he's been trialling a new system, so it'll be interesting to see if he brings that to the table this week. We'll have to wait and see.
Moving to Churchtown's nearest rivals, Midlothian got a 2-2 draw away at Sloths last week. Now, in the ill-fated recording, which was really good last week, and I was gutted that my technical problems meant we couldn't share it, a few of us actually looked at this and said this was going to be a really difficult game for Midlothian. Do you think it's a point gained or 2 dropped?
I think it's definitely a point gained. You know, Sloths have turned things around this sort of second half of the season. Rob's put some results together. He's sort of found a system that's getting the best out of the players that he's got at his disposal, as well as other teams around Midlothian dropping points and them, you know, not really losing any ground. You know, they're still within touching distance of Churchtown. And I know we have a lot of banter and stuff with Ian and Rocks and all that sort of stuff, but, you know, they're on a great run of form, and they're definitely a side that are going to be in the mix come the business end.
And what do you think Sloths are looking at for the rest of the season? It's fair to say they're not going to challenge for the top 6. But something we started to discuss last week was Rob suggesting he was going to stay on. Is he now putting the building blocks and the foundations in place to do a job next season?
I think Rob's going to probably play the rest of this season and try and take as many scalps as he can. Rob will go into a lot of his games this season thinking he can win them. Whether he can string 2, 3, 4 results together to get him on a mini run and climb the table a little bit, I'm not too sure. But yeah, Rob will be open to add points and climb the table a little bit and sort of open up the gap between the sides at the bottom.
Well, speaking of scalps, they travel to Valen this week. Do you give them much of a chance?
I think Valen at home are quite strong. They've not been as exhilarating as they were last season. They've not been clinical enough and put sides away. I think they've got 6 or 7 draws. So if you can stay in the game with Valen, you're going to have a chance. But Valen are another side who have got the ability to put a 20-30 minute spell together where they can go bang, 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 Shevchenko, Totti, and you're 3-0 down. But look, if the game's close at half time, then Rob will fancy his chances.
Midlothian are probably in the second biggest game of the week this week. They they host Bolton Phoenix. It's not a must win for either side at this stage, but is the need to win to not just build momentum but make a statement and sort of building towards a playoff encounter? Is that what this game is?
Yeah, I think so. Look, both sides have made it quite clear they both think they can still top the table coming into the season. I think both sides will go into the game thinking they can win, but I think neither side will be distraught with a point. Bolton are finding some form. Bolton are playing some good stuff. Ryan's found something, and they're going on a bit of a run. I can see them being, a real form side coming towards the end of the season. A lot's been made about his defence of the title, and he's finding form at the right time. He's got competition for places. Players are coming in and doing well, and then dropping out and whatever. Montella's in the goals. So it's the result of that game at this Sunday is not going to determine anything.
On the subject of Bolton, they won 3-0 at home to BTEC. They are up to third. There have been questions over form, among other things. Is the fact that they're now up to third a reflection of them turning things around a little bit recently and becoming more consistent? Or is it more of a reflection of teams like Valen, like Panathinaikos, being bang out of form?
No, that's harsh on Ryan. The game is a 26-game league season. And Ryan knows that. And he knows that because they started so shit last year and then put a fantastic run together, finished second, and then went on and won it. So, Ryan's side are pacing themselves well. They're well in the mix. They're well still in the title race, let's be honest. And they're coming into some form. A couple of times in the last few weeks, we've mentioned that they've not been in great form. When actually, if you look back in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, they're playing really well and they're getting the results. So, don't write Bolton off. Bolton are definitely in the mix to win the Super League this year.
As we sit here now, between me and yourself,
yeah,
are they capable of being the first team to retain the title?
Yeah, of course they're capable, yeah. Firstly, Ryan knows how to win it. He did it last year. Secondly, they're going into the business end in form. They've got the big players playing well. Montella's scoring. Veron's getting back to his best. So, yeah, of course they are. Look, there's a lot of other teams who are in good form and will also think that they can win the title. But, yeah, Bolton are definitely capable. Whether they will or not, I'm not too sure. But I think Bolton will be in the grand final at the end of the season.
And we've kind of touched on them already, but BTEC on the end of that 3-0. Is there anything more we can say about them? Or have we kind of done the BTEC thing to death?
Yeah, we just keep covering the same ground. You know, Ian will be frustrated that he put a few results together, thought he sort of turned it around. He's brought in a couple of new players. He's tried a new system, which I don't think we'll see again. I'll be really, really surprised if Ian sticks with it. He's got a couple of new players in, so Ian will have one eye on next season, but he'll also still be putting 100% into every game and putting. He'll be trying different things. We'll probably see some fringe players get a run. We might see maybe another system, a couple of different formations from him. So he'll definitely be planning for next season. Obviously, we know he's got Crespo coming in. But he will still be going into each game thinking, you know, that he can win, and
Okay.
he'll want to get as many points on the board as he can to build that momentum into next season.
Here's a question, and I apologise for not giving you any time to prepare it. So if you want to maybe come back to it next week, depending on what happens on Sunday, I'm more than happy to do so. If I gave you the job of BTEC manager for a week, is there anything you can think off the top of your head you might do differently?
You know, everybody's got different ideas, different preferences. I think that the players that Ian's got and the formation that he's played for predominantly most of the season, you know, there's something not quite right. That should be working. You know, his defensive midfield line, his goalkeeper are all fantastic. Yeah, there's maybe a couple of question marks over his attacking players and they've not scored enough goals. But if they're the players he's got, you know, what else can he do? So I don't know whether there's maybe some team instructions or player instructions that maybe I might do differently to Ian, but I don't know what he's doing. I don't think I'll be doing a massive amount different. You know, I might have tried something different a bit sooner than he did when he was on that poor run. In terms of a different system, maybe try something narrow. I quite like going to a narrow formation myself. But I don't think Ian's done a great deal wrong, really. You know, sometimes the champ gods are just not with you. And I think once you get into a rut, especially in this league, you know, it's momentum in this league. The thing I've found I've been in this league for just over half a season is that form and momentum is absolutely massive.
Let's move on to a team you can talk at length about, and that is because we're moving on to Chudley Cannons and their 0-0 draw with Valen. What did you make? What did you take from the game?
Firstly, a point against Valens, I would say, is a good point considering where they are, where we are. You know, obviously the quality in the squads is. There's a gap in the quality of the squads, but at the same time, still a little bit frustrating. You know, we've found a bit of form. We're unbeaten in 4. We've got 7 points from our previous 9 before we played Valen. We matched them up and went narrow, which is sort of had a look back through their previous results and saw that when sides have gone like for like and played narrow against Valen, that's where Valen have dropped a fair amount of points this season, which is why we did it. And I did it to shore it up because Valen don't concede a lot of goals. So to keep a clean sheet was really pleasing. Not to be able to nick one and take all 3 points at home was a little bit disappointing. We did have a goal disallowed, but nonetheless, it maintains our unbeaten record. It's another point. But again, you know, Parma dropping points and it's still a missed opportunity. But at the same time, you know, a point against Valen, you know, is decent. To keep a clean sheet against Valen as well, you know, is a decent result.
Well, you mentioned Panathinaikos there, and your next game is at home to Hooligans. I know you're still a few points away, but are you looking at this week thinking, with the form there, both Hooligans and Panathinaikos are in, this is a chance to really make some ground and maybe sneak that 6th place?
It's definitely a chance to make some ground up. But then again, the last 2 weeks have both been really big opportunities that we've not quite grasped. Teams have dropped points. The teams that are in and around us, sort of 8, 9, 10, have dropped points, as well as Panathinaikos, who've obviously not been in a great run of form. We put 2 wins together and we're hoping to kick on with from that. And we've come away with 2 draws now. 8 points from 4 games is a good return in this league and a good run of form. But I think I still think we're a little bit way back. We've got Hull's at home, which I expect us to win. We're in decent form. I think we will win on Sunday. But there's opportunities that I look back on earlier in the season where we've let ourselves down and probably got it wrong, which means that these points that we're picking up now, these draws, are not enough. Whereas if we'd have picked up wins early in the season in games we should have won, these points might have been more valuable, if you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. Sorry, carry on.
So yeah, I expect us to win. I expect us to win on Sunday. We'll see how the results go, as to whether that means we gain any ground or not. But then following that, we've got 3 away fixtures, which is obviously going to be really tough. But to go into 3 away fixtures 5 unbeaten would be good and give us some confidence that we can get points from them.
Valen, as we've touched on already, hosts Sloths. Where do you see their title chances at the minute? Because we've spoken at Churchtown, we've spoken about Midlothian, we've spoken about Bolton. We're not really talking about Valen other than every week to say, pound for pound, they're probably as good, if not better, than everyone.
Yeah, I think. Look, they've been hard to beat. They've not conceded a lot of goals, but the goals have also dried up. Last year, when they were being clinical and they were winning games, they were putting games to bed. Whereas this year, they've drawn too many. If you turn probably 2 or 3 of the draws into wins, they'd probably level or above Churchtown at the top. So look, they're definitely a big player. They're going to be a big player in this title race because they're going to be difficult to beat, especially over 2 legs. In the playoffs, they're going to be difficult to beat. So Valen are right in the mix.
A result we've already touched on was Hoddesdon 0, Palmerton Icos 0.
Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about that, do we?
No. Something that stuck out for me in that is more absentees for Hoddesdon. I mean, literally, with the exception of my results consistently being terrible, he's got to be the unluckiest guy in the Super League with the amount of players he can never pick from. But Palmerton Icos, during the mid-season shows, almost everyone said the top 6 as it is will be the top 6 at the end. Maybe not in that order, but they will be. Do you see Palmerton Icos now, as we talk, dropping out?
It's going to be tight. I think Macca needs to find that form that he had at the start of the season that propelled him up into the sort of top 2 and 3. And we're talking about the fantastic start that he's made and the different formations that he's brought in and that teams had not tried before. And he'd been reinventing football and all this sort of stuff. And he just seems to have gone off the boil a little bit. If he can get back to that, find some form and start picking up points, then yes. But like I just sort of alluded to, form and momentum are massive, and he's on a slippery downward slope. And Alf, who's been confident right from mid-season that he was going to catch him, has made his Astor side hard to break down, hard to beat. He's not conceding a lot of goals. And if those Brazilian boys he's got up front can score the goals to pick him up the points, then yes, Palmer will drop out.
Game of the week this coming week for me is Palmerton Icos versus Astor Athletic.
Yeah, Palmer versus Astor's absolutely huge. If Alf can win the game and go above into 6th place, he's going to make it really difficult for anybody below Palmerton Icos, Hulls, myself, or whatever to close that gap. He's a wily old fox, is Alf, and he knows what he's doing. If he gets into that 6th place, he's going to hold on to it for dear life.
Well, last week they travelled to Swindon Devils. First half was very nondescript from their perspective. Devils arguably just shaded it, but Astor's quality shone through in the second half. I'll let you talk a bit more about Astor in a minute. From a Devils perspective, very frustrating evening. I don't know what happened in the second half. We just didn't turn up for the second half. There is real unrest in the camp. Zidane's agent's been putting it about that he's looking at a move, and that's upset 14 first-team players. I'm
Really?
getting the old hoping he learns from his mistakes and dislikes Zidane, and he's gone a bit of Nelka on me. I have been looking at a narrow formation for my game this week against the Dragons. I'm not quite happy with it yet, so I'm not deploying the narrow formation this week. But I have made a few changes to personnel. So our games with Dragons are normally not necessarily in this incarnation of the Super League. They're not normally bad games. We've shared quite a few sort of 4-3s, 3-2s. And I'm just kind of hoping that we can translate the first half form against Astor into something against Dragons that we can then build on. And that's what I'm hoping for this week. I know Jamie has suggested we play a loser leaves the Super League match. I'm not quite at the point where I'm ready to sign my name to that sort of contract, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if I win that he announces that's it, he's done. But yeah, and again, so that's where we are at the Devils. Was there anything you wanted to add, particularly about Astor's second half performance?
I just think they were solid. That you guys, unfortunately, never looked like you were going to win the game. You never looked like really creating a massive amount and troubling Astor. And they just found a way. They created a chance. I'll have to be delighted that Anderson that he brought in got the goal. And yeah, they're building confidence. They're building confidence to make a real go of hitting that 6th spot.
The final game to review from last week: Hooligans 2, Dragons 0. Like yourself, that result keeps Hooligans in the mix. It definitely takes Dragons out of the mix, in my opinion. Does it concern you that they won, and if I remember correctly, Ronaldinho back to something like his dazzling best, just ahead of playing you?
Yeah, Ronaldinho is one of the best players on the game. Not sure that he's been utilised in his best position all season, which is why his performances might have been inconsistent. But for him to find some form and lift his morale is obviously good for them. Yeah, we talk about Hull's, being the inconsistent side. They could go to, Vallon and win, but then they could play, Sloths and lose or whatever. They're really inconsistent. You know what you're going to get in terms of setup, personnel, formation. You just don't know what you're going to get in terms of performance. I would have been wanting more from Ronaldinho, Aymar. These are elite players on the game, sort of top 10 players on the game. You want those guys winning your games. Like Barry Ferguson did last year, like Veron did. Like all these guys like Van Nistelrooy scoring goals this year, and Montello, and all these top elite players. You want them grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck and winning your matches, and getting 8s and 9s and 10s every week and scoring and assisting. And I don't think they've got the best out of the best players. I think they've had a few injuries and they've played them in different positions and stuff like that. But yeah, just too inconsistent, far too inconsistent. I just think with the form that we're in at the minute, I'm confident that we'll win.
And is there anything you want to add to the discussion about the Dragons, whether it's on the nature of their defeat or their match this week against the Devils?
Jamie sort of touched on, if his forward players don't perform, he doesn't win. Viduka's been off it for a couple of weeks. He had a couple of weeks where it looked like he was back in the goals and could have put a run together. And if Viduka scores, then Jamie has a chance, and he'll say that to himself. In terms of you saying that if you beat them on Sunday, that Jamie might sack it off and walk away from the league, I don't think he will. I think he is frustrated with how it's going, and again, probably a little bit inconsistent. But I don't think he'll walk away. I think he is looking towards next season. I've spoke to him about a potential transfer for next season. I mean, if he walks away, then obviously that's not something that we'll discuss any further. But I think Jamie's heart still is in it. I think he does love the Super League. But like us all, it's shit when you're losing, and it's brilliant when you're winning.
I'm going to give you a minute to consider performance of the week while I do a couple of sort of admin bits. So let me just read these back to you. Churchtown 2, Ardsley 1. Sloths 2, Midlothian 2. Bolton 3, BTEC 0. Chudley 0, Vallon 0. Hoddesdon 0, Palmouth and Icos 0. Swindon Devils 0, Astor Athletic 2. Hooligans 2, Dragons 0. Take a moment to consider who wins performance of the week. Well, I just say I want to a big thank you to Dave Black, who invited me on to the Championship Manager podcast this week. I believe that is going out either Bank Holiday Monday or possibly Tuesday, the 1st of September. We talk Super League. We talk the Old Firm game that I'm doing with 30 of the best managers on Twitter. Talk about my love of Swindon Town. We talk Partick Thistle. There's a lot of discussion on there. Thanks to everyone who is engaging with the Old Firm game. I know you're in it, Scott. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm getting lots of positive feedback of the different challenges of throwing out there. We've got the Old Firm Cup to look forward to in Season 4, which no one knows about yet, along with a few other bits. So with 2.5 seasons still to go, there's a lot left in that. And trying not to bore everyone, but I believe it's me on commentary this week as well. So we'll have no more of the shenanigans where players that aren't even in the matchday squad are being called out for being shit by the completely biased chairman. On that note, Scott, who gets performance of the week for last week?
For me, it's a toss-up between Astor, who have spoken about their confidence of getting into the playoffs, and when you're confident and you're outspoken and you say that you're going to go ahead and do something, you've got to back that up on the pitch, which they did. Or Bolton, who again have had questions asked about their title defence and the form and all this sort of stuff. I'm going to give it to Bolton because BTEC were looking like they were going to turn things around. Bolton are finding a real charge. I can see them going on a good run. This week, if they win this weekend, I could see Bolton going unbeaten till the end of the season. This weekend's a big game for them. And they just edge it from Astor purely because, no disrespect, but everyone expects to beat Swindon.
No, that's fair. Congratulations to Ryan on Performance of the Week. For what it was worth, I noticed last year, I don't think Andreas got enough Manager of the Weeks because they were doing so well at the top. And I think that's the same. I personally would have given it to Kieran at Churchtown for beating Ardsley. But we always go with a guest. So congratulations, Ryan, on Performance of the Week. Listen, Scott, good luck in the Old Firm game that we're doing, obviously. But more importantly, good luck this week against Hooligans as you try and maintain your pursuit of the top 6. Thanks as always for joining me. Appreciate it. And no doubt I will see you and speak to you again in the not too distant.
No worries. Cheers, Fife.
Good night, everyone.
Evening, all.